Hey, back in the late 1970s, there was a little cafe in our town near the bus stop, or the bus station actually, although it wasn't much of a bus station really. But this cafe was just across the road from the bus station, and we used to hang out there basically. It was a little cafe. It had about, I guess you could fit about 20 customers in there, and there was the rows of tables down one side, the serving counter the other side. It was like a narrow thing, and down the bottom there was a jukebox and a Space Invaders machine. You remember those? And the kids would go in there and use the Space Invaders. We'd usually have some music on the jukebox, and those guys who were kind of late teens, early 20s, we'd go in, get a coffee and hang out. And I remember the guy who I first remember running it. I don't know how far back the cafe went before I started going there, but the original guy, we had a sort of hot and cold relationship, I guess. I remember going in there once. I mean, it was a routine for me. I'd go in there, I'd get a coffee, and I'd sit and drink my coffee and wait for the guys to come round. And I went in there one morning, and he automatically got the coffee and he put it on the counter, and I looked at it and I said, I think I'll try a milkshake today. He said, you want a milkshake? Every morning you come in here, you get a coffee. It's routine. Why do you break the routine now? You want a milkshake? What do I do with the coffee? I said, well, you drink the coffee. I didn't ask for a coffee. I want a milkshake. And so he threw the coffee down the sink and grumbled and made me a milkshake. And we stayed friends. Another day I went in there, and I don't know what had gone on in his life, but he was having sort of a mini breakdown. He was really being tormented by something and struggling, and I said, look, give me the cloth, let me, you go, sit down at one of the tables, have a coffee, take a break, I'll look after things. It wasn't a great deal to look after because hardly anybody went in there except for those guys and the neighbourhood kids. And so anyway, we had sort of a kind of friendly relationship, although he didn't like much change to the routine. I never understood how the cafe made money because, basically people went in and had a coffee. I never really saw anybody having a meal in there, and it was never full at any time that I went in there. There were just a few stragglers all the time. I was in the 70s when this guy had it, and he sold it to a youngish couple, early 20s, in the 1980s, and they sort of tried to get it to be trendy and everything, but it's still pretty much remained the same as it always had been. And then they sold it to a biker guy, a sort of former Hells Angel, who carried on pretty much the way the cafe had always been, just no change in the decor. And there was the Space Invaders and the jukebox and the same bunch of guys who were sort of hanging on, and it still didn't seem to be making much money. And the bus station closed, and we all thought, that's it. If it didn't make any money at all, it would have come from the people who got off the buses. But I went back there recently, and there's the cafe. The bus station's long gone, but the cafe is still there. I looked through the window. I didn't go in there. We had such a great atmosphere in the 70s and 80s, and I don't know, it's a different bunch of people that use it now, and it's part of my history, and I thought it was probably best left in history. I don't know whether that makes sense, whether you have any places like that that are sort of dear to your heart, but you know that they belong in the past. And I looked through the window, and again there was only about half a dozen people in there having coffee. I think the machine, which was Space Invaders, has been updated. I didn't get a good look at that, but the jukebox is still there. I wonder what records they get played on there now. Some of the ones we used to play in there, there was one lad always asked for Painted Black. Do you remember that song, Painted Black? Every time anybody went near the jukebox, he'd shout, Painted Black! So what, paint the jukebox? And stupid little interactions like that kind of created the atmosphere in the cafe. So I don't know who owns it now, I don't know how it survived over all the years, but I was delighted to see that it was still there. So yeah, have you got any place like that you used to hang out in and you think is still there? Because I think it's a kind of a triumph really. All the changes that there's been in the town that I grew up in. Yeah, this little cafe has defied everything and survived. So I just thought I'd share that with you. Trip down memory lane.